The House of Mystery presents Inside Writing, the radio show where authors discuss their writing process in all genres.
Back into the House of Mystery, and I am Al Warren. Who else would I be? Mr. John Copenhagen, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Al. How are you? It's fine. Tuesday?
I'm still, is it? No, it's Wednesday. It's all the same.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know what the day of the week is anymore.
It's all blurred. It's all blurred, you know, it's all the same, you know. Too many things going on. Too many things on the weekend. Never had any time off. And that's your fault.
I know that's my fault. Sorry, Al.
just so we get that clear, you know. You're just whipping us into shape, making us work.
Keeping you busy.
Right.
I was referring to Outright DC. I made him do a panel on this weekend. So
in the middle of a book signing.
That was pretty cool.
Well, it was cool that the ladies all waited for an hour.
Yeah.
Just hung out and talked about me and you know, that was crazy. Desperate, I guess. Well, anyway, so let's get right on this. Now, we've got a guest. The new book is called Kismet, a thriller, and it's Amina Akhtar. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Al? And John?
I am delicious.
Oh, I love that.
Delicious, but and non-fat too. No carbs, no sugar. I'm all about that, you know. So what's going on with you? How come I had never heard of you before? Like, what is this?
Well, my first book was about the fashion world, so, you know, maybe a lot of men didn't read it. But
oh, please.
I'm just saying. But it was, you know, I call it Devil Wears Prada meets American Psycho. It was a very violent book with good accessories. That's what I would call it.
Sounds like my life. I don't know why I wouldn't have. This is crazy. So, but now I look at this, and you're a big star now.
I'm getting some good response. Yes, I don't know if I would say I'm a star.
Look at #1 new release on Amazon, 4,200 plus ratings. My God, that is a rock star.
Yeah, it's been. You know, it's one of those things where launch was last week and I haven't let anything sink in yet. So I'm just kind of rolling with it and being like, okay, everything is fine. Let's not worry about how many people are reading your book right now. Let's just hope they enjoy it.
Why don't you change your name to Lady Akhtar? Something like that. Lady.
Maybe
like Lady Gaga.
Maybe I should marry somebody with a title in a castle.
Madame. Madame.
That would be nice.
Do you have an entourage now that you're like doing this?
My dog. My dog is my entourage. She's sitting next to me, so that's about it. We keep really chill out here.
I would imagine you need security and a driver and everything now. I mean, this is crazy. How did you become a writer? Like, what's going on? You got to tell me the secret because I want to be like you. Okay, so.
Well, I always wanted to write, but you know, I didn't think of myself as a novelist. I thought, okay, let's go into journalism. So, you know, from high school on, I was very focused on journalism. I went to NYU. I got a job at Vogue right out of college, which I still don't know how that happened. And then I just sort of fell into the fashion industry, you know, and it wasn't like my intent, but there I was. So for about 2 decades almost, I was toiling in the ranks with the well-heeled. And then the industry started to implode. And you guys might have noticed this, like, you know, magazines were shutting down, websites were pivoting to video. Everyone who got hired would get laid off within a year. And I was definitely one of those people. So, you know, I was sitting there thinking, well, at the time I was in my mid-30s and I couldn't get a job. I had aged out of the fashion industry at 35. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do with myself? I have no skills. Like, my skills are fashion and writing and, oh my God, I have to pay rent, you know?
Well, you could get a job at the National Enquirer or something.
Oh, I'm sure, but I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror. So, and that's really important for fashion. So, I had also had a personal tragedy. My mom had died, and I wasn't really sure what to do with myself. And so I just realized, well, I'm not leaving my apartment anyways. Why don't I try my hand at writing my crazy fashion book idea? And, just see what happens. And I did. And, I got an agent, and then I promptly got turned down by every publisher for about 2 years, just at least.
Yeah.
Did you hunt them down and do some bad things to them?
Maybe only in my head. Maybe that'll be a book later. No, just kidding.
Yeah, the mysterious deaths of publishers.
Of publishing. No. And I thought, well, that was a nice try for me. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to move to Arizona and take care of my dad because he was out here by himself. And I did that. And about right after I moved here, and I mean, we're out, compared to Manhattan, where I've been living, I live on a mountain on a couple acres. We have a well. I have lots of wild animals. I don't see people very often. So we're really out there. And
there's a lot of wild animals in New York.
Yeah, I dated some of them too.
I was going to say,
Yeah. And so I was here and I thought, let me, Fashion Victim got picked up, and then I thought, well, let me set a book here because the setting here is stunning. It's just one of the most beautiful places on the planet. But it's me, so I have to fill it with assholes. Because I like to write terrible people. So I thought, well, Sedona is about 20 miles from me, and it's very wellness with crystals, but at the same time conservative with guns. And it's this weird mishmash that, you don't believe it until you see it. So it was. Wow. It is. I mean, obviously not everybody there is conservative, but this is a very conservative area. So it was just such a wonderful, dichotomy of things. We've got two different opposite things that should not go together, but that's life. So I thought, well, let's murder some people in a book and see what happens.
Well, where does that come from? Where you say you like to write awful characters or assholes and murder people and all that. So where do you think that comes from? Are you one of those?
Oh, I'm probably a terrible person myself. I don't know.
Well, I just wondered, do you go out at night dressed up as someone different and do things like maybe kill people and torture them or something? What goes on?
And then write about it in a book now. That's so smart.
Are the feds listening to this? Because I'm not going to incriminate myself. No. No, I think being in the fashion industry and also being part of the blog world in in New York in the 2000s, 2008, 2009, things were always really snarky. And I don't think I realized that I have a very snarky sense of writing until I started writing Kismet, and people were like, oh, it's really vicious. And I was like, I thought I was being nice. Oh man, I need to tone it down even more because my default is to just kind of poke fun at everything, including myself. But yeah, it's definitely not something I set out to do as my style, but I'm here, I guess. So.
Wow. Well, but okay, so now you're putting together this book and you're using that area as kind of a place to center it at. But how do you come up with your characters? Where do they come from for you? Are you one that imagines characters or dreams them, or you see someone at the coffee shop and you go, well, that would be a good character? I
definitely based some of the people on real people I have met. There's twin shamans in this book, and they're named Brittany and Star. Brittany came because she was an actual person I met, a friend of a friend who had come over to my house.
Is that John?
It was John. John, did you bring Brittany over? No. And she's a shaman, blonde hair, just totally not what I had expected when somebody says, I'm bringing my shaman friend over. And I was like, okay. And she started talking about how Trump made the chemtrails go away.
Oh.
And I felt like the air had just sucked out of the room. It was that response exactly, John. I was like, oh, this is not going to work for me. Sorry, you have to go. So it was kind of like she was in my head. I wanted her. And then the other character, Ronnie, and she's just this, I call her Sad Ronnie because she's just got this pathetic life. She's very downtrodden because I needed somebody who would glom on to a guru figure, right? So I had to kind of take everything away from her to get her to that point. And I kind of, in my head, she's me at 18 when I moved from Texas to New York, and I was just huge fish out of water, right? Everyone was so much more sophisticated and cool, and I had just been hanging out at the mall, you know? So I wanted her to feel like she didn't belong and she couldn't tell anybody and she had to play along. So she's kind of me back when I was Sad Amina.
Well, that's interesting. But, you know, I'm still thinking back a bit when you said you got turned down by all those agents, like all these publishers, I should say, and that. So what is it you think that made you keep going or pursue it even further? Is there a certain event that happened or some person or something that caused you to keep on doing it?
Honestly, I didn't know what else to do with myself.
Well, McDonald's was hiring.
Well, yeah, out here, the jobs were Walmart and nursing. And I was like, I don't want to go work at Walmart. I can't go from working at Elle and New York Magazine to working at Walmart. Like, it's just not the look I'm going for. So, polyester uniform and being a greeter. There's nothing wrong with working at Walmart, no, but there's just not a lot of opportunities out here for me. Yeah. So I thought, well, let's try it. And if nothing happens, then I'll figure out my job situation. So, I kind of just keep saying, just keep trying it. Just keep going. Just let's just see what happens. And then sort of cross my fingers that, somebody will want to read it. And thankfully it's worked out. I don't know how, I don't know who I owe my soul to, but like.
Oh, Brittany.
It's Brittany.
Yeah, it's Brittany. Yeah. Come on. It's Brittany, bitch.
Brittany has my soul. It's true. It's true.
Well, so when you put together Kismet, do you have it in your mind, kind of the whole story kind of, and then you're putting things together, or is it kind of, you just wake up and you have an idea and you keep adding it and you're going as it comes and all that? Like, how does this get assembled for you?
It's kind of a mix of both. I recognize that plotting and outlining is very helpful. However, I find that my version of doing it is knowing the beginning and what I want the ending to be, and a few things in the middle, and then the rest I just have to wing it. And sometimes that works out really well, and sometimes it takes, 2 years of writing, and, I threw out 5 entirely complete manuscripts of this book. Just threw them out and started over because I wasn't happy with where it had gone. So sometimes things come to me literally as I'm walking around. So I don't know if you follow my social, but I have a lot of wild animals here. And so I'm walking around on our driveway and there's this giant raven. I mean, they're larger than my dog. And one of them dropped a feather right at my feet. And I was like, ew. And I was thinking at that moment, like, how do I show the wildness that's here, the animals, the mountains? How do I make that come through without being like, it's so pretty, And so I'm a little bit literal with things. So I literally put in chapters where the ravens have their own point of view. And they're like a Greek chorus complaining about humans throughout the book. So, and that just sort of came to me as I'm looking at this feather being like, whoa, that's cool. So I'm a little bit of a what do they call it? A plotzer, I plot and I'm going by the seat of my pants here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's crazy that, what a way of doing it. I don't know. But hey, if it works, it works. Obviously exactly. It's doing something well. But how do you actually experience your characters? And I'm not trying to be
I hear flippant, them.
But yeah, you hear them.
I hear them. And this is with names, and this is with lines, things they'll say. I'll hear it in my ear, and it's like, okay, that's what I have to do. That's the name I need. That's the phrase I want them to be saying. or there'll be a tone of voice that they'll have, and that's like, oh, and it's almost an aha moment for me every time. And it's something that Caroline Kepnes calls the back brain, where you kind of have to not be doing anything. It's that moment before you fall asleep, where your brain is just off, that these things come to me. It's like that midnight, you want to turn off the lights and go to sleep, but you have to stay awake enough to write it down. And I've learned to always grab my phone and take notes of any midnight ideas that come to mind, because they work for me.
I interviewed a serial killer once in prison, and that's what he described his voices as too. And it was always the midnight, and he said it was the back brain or whatever. And I was like,
the back brain, yeah.
Yeah, I said it's a little bit, a psychosis going on here. I don't know. But what do I know? Hey, it's all good. So, but do you find yourself?
Oh, is he? Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
No, well, actually, if you want, I can set you up if you want a date here. But when this happens, is this happening, you say at night, and you got your phone and all that stuff. Do you ever kind of like wake up in the middle of the night and find like a shovel by the bed or some muddy shoes or something?
Well, if I did, it's because I sleepwalk, which is always really creepy, right? That's actually in the next book. I was just in New York for lunch, and I literally I was staying at a friend's apartment, and I woke up in their kitchen. I was like, oh, God.
Wow.
So I never quite know what Sleep Me is going to be doing or wearing or where she's going to wake up. So if there is a shovel and dirty boots, it's because she did something she should not have.
Well, you see, John, if you got that, she didn't deny it. She said if there is. So, I picked these things up. So, we've got this person that's sleepwalking.
I'm setting a good defense up right here. All right?
Exactly. I can prove I'm nuts. Yeah.
Funny, I'll always ask the shovel question, or people are like, "No, I think you might be the first." That's like, well, that's possible.
Well, if there is,
sure.
Well, now we know. Great, that's wonderful.
Now this author's kooky. She's a bit weird, guys.
Yeah, see, I knew Arizona was a little bit strange, but come on. It's crazy. Well, that's interesting. So, do your characters then kind of lead the story in a way, or tell you?
Yes,
they do.
I was trying to explain to my dad, who's not a writer, my process, and I said, I usually have an idea of what I want to write that day, but that's about it. And then I just sit down, and all these things just come out onto the computer, and I don't really stop and think about it. And I just sort of let this, it's like herding cats, trying to get the characters to want to go towards what I want the ending to be. And sometimes I can get them to do that. And sometimes it takes a lot of rewriting and even more rewriting to just get them to this one point. Like so.
Do you think you rewrote the second book more than the first? Or
yes.
Yeah, I'm curious, because I thought it was going to be easier the second time around. Turns out.
No, because then you've had people who loved your first book or hated your first book, and you have all these different critiques in your head as you're writing, and it's like, how do I make this next book good? I don't know. And you have to shut all of that out. But it feels like way more pressure to write the second book, I think.
Wow. So do you have some sort of a point that you want to make with your stories? Like, even if it happens organically, like you might not sit down and have an intentional thing that you want readers to take away from your book, but it might happen just from you telling the story. Is there some sort of a subtext or point to your book?
I think there's a thread in my stories of an outsider. I think, like in Fashion Victim, the main character doesn't feel like she belongs. In Kismet, Ronnie definitely feels like an outsider. And it comes from being what we call the ABCDs, which is American-born confused desis, which is Pakistani and Indian and Bangladeshi kids who grew up in the U.S. And it can be a challenge to figure out where you belong because you're too American for people, back in your parents' country, and you're not American enough for people here. So where is it that you belong? So you're kind of straddling two worlds here. So I definitely have these characters who embody that, who are not, not comfortable in their own skin yet. They're trying to figure out who their people are. And it's a bit of a journey with a lot of murder. And yeah, I think that would be the connecting thread throughout all my stories.
And so do you actually try to research killers and murderers and things like that, or what do you do to get the storyline and the events to sort of happen that where they seem real?
I don't, but I mean, I think I don't research killers more than anybody else does. Like, I don't watch a lot of true crime stuff, but we all read Helter Skelter, and stuff like that. I think a lot of it also comes out. My dad's a retired psychiatrist, and there's definitely an undercurrent of actual crazy in my book. And I blame him, obviously. And he used to try to shrink me as a kid. So
Shrink you?
yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's definitely the things where I'm like, yes, let's kill the psychiatrist in this one.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So you're actually killing off people in the books.
Sometimes, and fashion victim, absolutely. Oh God, yeah. And in every interview I had to be like, no, I would never want to kill anybody in fashion. But the reality is, absolutely. Oh my gosh.
What's so funny, I have a friend who writes a lot of creative nonfiction, and recently her speak about how, she wishes people would embrace the idea, not turn their nose up at the idea that writing can be therapeutic.
Yeah.
And I always think about, talking to crime writers, and, it's often like killing people off can be incredibly therapeutic.
Oh my God, it really is. It gets so much angst out, like that lady who cut me off while driving. Okay, well, she's going to have an accident in my book, and it all comes out, and then I don't have to, feel it or act on it in real life, which I think is safer.
Safer and better. Just
better. We don't want to kill people, but no, and especially like when I wrote my first book, I was definitely not in the best headspace, but it got so much out. It wasn't about grief, and it wasn't about a parent dying, or I was in this moment where also like my career had ended for the most part. And it was a public ending. Like, people wrote about my layoff, which was the weirdest thing, by the way. So it was like, why do people know who I am? And so I really felt like I'd had the rug pulled out from under me in so many ways. So writing that first book got a lot of that anger out that I was holding on to. And I just felt so much better after I'd written it. So, I always thought, well, if nothing happens with my work, at least I'm writing this for me and, trying to stay sane.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with trying to stay sane, that's for sure. These days.
Word. Right.
But why? Why?
I think it's good to embrace your eccentricities, but I think you have to make sure you're not being harmful to yourself or to others for the most part.
So like the lady that believed that the Trump stopped the chemtrails? It's a little harmful.
I think it can be in terms of beauty. I mean, wellness. The way I look at it is wellness has become this billion-dollar industry, right? And it's not about spirituality anymore. It's about buy this thing, that'll make you whole. Buy this crystal, buy this jewelry, buy this room spray or incense, buy this candle. And none of that is going to make anybody better. It might make you happy for a moment, and that's awesome. That's great. Shiny rocks are pretty, whether they're diamonds or quartz or whatever. But it's not going to heal your traumas or your issues. And that was one of the things that I was diving into with this book. Because, I get wellness. I feel like every woman I know is into wellness now because we're kind of running out of options here, right? So I wanted to really focus on the people who are making a nice buck off everybody, as opposed to people who want to actually help others. That makes sense.
Yeah, that does. I was just the other night watching the documentary about the Woodstock '99 debacle,
Yes.
and which is fascinating. And just the whole thing, I cringed because it was so filthy, and I don't like crowds. I was like, it was
Mhm.
kind of like a horror story for me. But one thing that kept on coming up, and I think the sort of underlying thesis was, here's this thing that was kind of like wellness, a little bit like this real moment that people are trying to bring up again from '69 and have, but they totally created a big problem because now it was just all about the amount of money they can make off of it. And,
Yeah.
it's like wellness and some of these other things, which are essentially kind of, under the realm of health or spirituality or, taking care of yourself, become super commodified, and then it just warps everything.
Yeah. It's like Gwyneth Paltrow says you need this to be whole, so you're gonna spend obscene amount of money to do it, but I don't think her candles are gonna make me whole.
I mean,
I like candles, they're
her
lovely.
vagina smelling candle didn't.
Yeah, I don't need that. I'm good.
Could you imagine going over to someone's house and it's like, what is that smell? What's my new vagina candle?
I mean, to each their own. If that's what makes people happy, great. I don't want to yuck someone's yum here.
Oh, just go for it. Yuck.
Yeah. If you're not hurting anybody else, have fun, go wild.
Yeah. But writing about that sort of thing, doesn't that sort of and when you're in that business, does it affect the way you think about your business then? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you're working in.
Yeah. I mean, in the fashion industry, wellness was always hand in hand. So, a lot of the people I've met in wellness were in New York. So I feel like this story could be set in New York, it could be set in LA, it could be set in Tulum or in Bali. I just happened to set it here. The people I've met some of them were obviously actually were into it. They were like, I'm here to help. I don't even want money. Let me help you. And you're like, okay, cool. But then you have people who are like, it'll be $500 just to talk to me on the phone. And it's like, well, why? And those were the people that I wanted to murder. They're in it's the scammers that get murdered in this book, So it's not necessarily looking at, oh, wellness is stupid. It's more like these are the people who are taking advantage of others, who are, seeing a need and glomming on and taking people's money and not in a good way. So I really wanted to murder them off as opposed to somebody who's actually, in it for healing and what have you. Because I think there are so many different cultures and healing that happens that, I don't think anyone can say that's bad, right? But I can point out that if you have to spend a bazillion dollars to buy something because that one thing is all you need to be whole, then I can point that that's bad. It is the commodification of wellness and spirituality. So it's something. I mean, if I were a less ethical person, maybe I would just open up a shop out here and make some money, right?
Well, yeah. Think about this.
Sell crystals for a lot of cash. You can get that stuff for cheap.
It's interesting because it feels like almost like just another arm of the way that sometimes religion is used, and the commodification of religion. It feels a little bit like it's the new, I hate to say new age because we're past new aginess, I guess, at this point, but now it's the word is wellness, right?
Yeah. Well, it's called wellness now to be more all-encompassing, I suppose.
Right.
Well, you can call it anything you want, but I think it's the ultimate. We want to make things either evil or really wonderful. So whether it's a religion or a cult or it's an item, it's going to save you, it's going to protect you, it's going to heal you, or it's going to kill you. It's even to the, Donald Trump's going to save us. It's like that kind of thing. So I think that's just kind of the way people kind of do it.
But I also think for women especially, we've all, I know so many women this has happened to where their doctors don't take them seriously. Like I have chronic migraines. I've had so many doctors who are like, yeah, right, you're lying, and wellness can offer them a chance of controlling things a little bit more, you know, of saying, I'm doing all these things right, I'm going to be well again. And there are some things, obviously, depending on what people need, that can be helpful, but we have to also look at ourselves and what we're doing. You know, I feel like there is such an impact in the wellness space. And is it a good impact? Is it, you know, like, is anyone looking at where the crystals are coming from? Is anyone looking at the environmental aspect of mining these rocks and who is mining them, which is often children? So there's a lot about wellness that can be questionable at this point, although I do absolutely understand why people turn to it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and there's a mental element to it that, you know, if you put yourself in the right headspace, you will handle any sort of issue or illness better than if you don't. Right.
Yes.
And certain things are going to make you feel better and certain things work. But
and listen, like I said, sometimes a shiny rock is all you need because it makes you happy because it's pretty, you know, and that's fine. That works for me. But I don't think that rock has special powers.
Yeah, you know, but hey, you know, it's kind of the way the world is right now. If we can make a buck, we will. So who did you use for inspiration for something like for your wellness people, like your guru in this, Marley Dewhurst?
Marley is definitely, she wants to be Gwyneth. She wants goop. She wants the acclaim. She wants the, you know, everyone to know her name. So that's definitely, I feel like Gwyneth Paltrow's the top of the wellness world, right?
Yeah.
So, no disrespect to her, you know, I some of the stuff on Goop is hilarious. I love it. But as character archetype, she was top in my head. And then one of the things I really wanted to dive into here was how much the white wellness world takes from other cultures without celebrating those cultures, right? So the main character is Pakistani American, and everyone thinks she's Indian. And when they find out she's not, she's Pakistani and her family's Muslim, people freak out, you know, because they don't want to have a Muslim around. But then they have Rumi quotes, you know, everywhere, I mean, on their Instagram and what have you. And the main character points out, well, you know, Rumi's Muslim and he's writing about God, and everybody is kind of horrified by that. So it really, and this comes from actual people I've talked to who were like, oh, you're not Indian? I thought you were. And it's like, I'm not the right kind of South Asian for them. So I really wanted to put that in there. Because I think that one of the cool things about wellness is exposing different cultures and rituals and what have you. But again, they're commodifying it, you know, and they're not celebrating the cultures that these things come from.
Wow.
There's a weird sort of exoticism going on too, I would imagine, sort of this idea that, you know, it's because I don't understand this other culture, it's mysterious, but that mystery is going to heal me or something. I don't know.
It's a bit of Orientalism, to be honest.
Yes.
You know? It's like, oh, it's a mystic from South Asia. Oh, yes. And the character's like, no, I'm from Queens. Like, no.
You're not supposed to tell them that.
I tell you, I should have done a whole Swami act out here. I would have made a fortune. But I didn't.
It's Lady Ominous. I'm here to heal you. Yeah, no, that's crazy. But well, that's quite a. So, are you happy with the end product when we've done Kismet? Like when you look back, this and even your first book, you're really happy. You wouldn't change anything.
Oh, I would totally change the first book.
Oh.
Kismet, I love. I feel like the first book, I just had no idea what I was doing. I literally just vomited out this book, you know, and I'd never really written something that long. You know, I did a lot of writing for websites. So I was used to writing 300 words, 400 words maximum. So it was a challenge just to be able to write something that was book length for me. I think having written more since then, I would definitely refine it a little bit more, had a little nuance, because it's really more of like a sledgehammer of a book as opposed to any kind of subtlety. But with Kismet, I am pretty happy. I mean, look, you can ask me in a year from now if I change this opinion, but I like the way Kismet came out. I'm still kind of surprised people keep calling it vicious because I thought I was being nice, but I have to work on that clearly.
Well, it might just be their own experience of what their life is like, you know. You might, I get called all sorts of things like that. A little bit more aggressive than vicious, but
I'm sure you do.
What are you trying to say?
John doesn't, though. John's lovely. So.
No, John he's a good girl there.
I try.
We met in Dallas at the BCon for like a hot second. I was like, hey, I know him. And
no, that was an interesting voucher con, without a doubt. I'm excited about Minneapolis.
I'm not going. I'm on deadline with my edits, and because I live with my father, who's, in his late 80s, I just can't risk COVID for him. So
no, that totally makes sense. Absolutely. You have to do what's best for your situation yourself. But I'm sorry I won't get to see you there.
We'll have major FOMO the entire time, however.
Right. Well, it probably will. We should all just wait to post stuff like after.
No.
Being not when it's actually happening and you're not there and you're just getting the pictures and you're like, I could be at that bar hanging out with
I could do this. Well, I'm looking forward to San Diego. I feel like that's going to be a really fun one.
Yeah, that one's going to be fun. Beautiful location. So I'm fascinated because you're the second author we've interviewed in a row. Well, that I've interviewed in a row that has a book coming out with Thomas and Mercer, and I feel like the last one was Kelly J. Ford. And she's her book Real Bad Things. She's great, and but I feel like there's maybe an embrace more diverse books coming, down the pipeline through Thomas and Mercer.
I feel that Thomas and Mercer puts their money where their mouth is for diversity.
That's hopeful, very hopeful.
Yeah, not just signing people who, LGBTQ or writers of color, but offering decent advances, which I really hope other publishing houses take note of. Not that, I don't want to ever stay with Thomas and Mercer, but I think that the more other publishing houses follow suit, the better it is for everybody. So I think that they are taking more risks with who they're signing in a good way. I think the outcome or the end benefit will be great for everybody because you're getting really diverse stories, really different points of view and writing that maybe people would never have read.
Right.
So I think, they're doing stuff.
Yeah, I think that was.
You sign with them; they're great.
Yeah, I think that's very hopeful, and they're in a position. It strikes me as being, to make something successful like that, they're in a good position, in terms of promotions and that kind of thing. It's just what we need. It's like so much of this is just promoting something. It's not that people don't actually want to read it. I believe.
Oh, yeah. For sure. And there's also so much of it is out of the writer's hands. Once it's published, there's only so much you can do. You can tweet about it, you can post on Instagram, you can do every interview possible, but it's out of your hands. The marketing and all of that is something that the publishing houses have to do. And I'm noticing that Thomas and Mercer really pushes their books in a good way. So hopefully we'll see more of that.
Yeah. What is your process? So when you sit down, can you time yourself like 10 to 4 every day and just sit down and write, or do you have to be in a certain mood?
No, I usually do like 11 to 2. Every day I get up, work out because I have to, because middle age. And then hopefully if I don't have a migraine, I get to work. I drink my coffee, have the dog next to me. And, some days I'm going to crank out a few thousand words and some days it's 500 words and it's nothing, but it's all part of that process. You have to go through those annoying days where nothing's working to get to the good days. I generally try to write every single day, with the caveat that there are some days, like once or twice a week where I can't stomach looking at a computer, and that's fine. So I never know when I'm going to be functional enough to write. So I don't take weekends. I just get it all done as much as I can. And then after about 2, I usually get very stoned and I just hang out. And that's also a little back brain action where, things come to me and it's great, yay, legal weed. That's about it.
Wow.
It's a very easy process, guys. I just literally sit down, do it, and then I get stoned and hang out. And
that sounds like a brilliant process, man.
Yeah.
I wish
I'm
mine.
gonna have writing retreats for this.
I know, right? Right? What a good new formula. Maybe that's something that can happen in Sedona, right?
Right? It is legal here, guys. We can
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I mean, it's like I can't, like, after all these years, I feel like I still cobble together time to write. Like, I can't just,
John sits in the kitchen with a glass of wine and he reads it out to Alexa and then tells Alexa to read it back. That's
You're not all that far from reality.
Reading things out loud is such a good way to edit, though. Like, it actually works.
Well, I'm a little bit on the dyslexia spectrum, and so I actually do have my computer read stuff back to me to catch things that I can't. My brain actually inserts or fills in as I'm writing, and so I have to have it read back to me.
Have you used that new dyslexia font?
The thing is apparently, I work this past year, for years before, worked with dyslexic kids in my teaching, and the whole font thing is a little bit, there's no real dyslexic font. There's just like better fonts than others. So I haven't checked it out, but I've asked some of my students, who are much more dyslexic than I am. I'm not that far on the spectrum, but and they're like, yeah, as long as it's like really about spacing, word spacing, and really sort of straightforward, clear font. But yeah, anyway, I haven't tried it, but really for me, I just have to have it read back to me, and then I catch it. It's just an interesting.
Yeah. I definitely have an edit where I'm reading it out loud. My poor dog has to suffer through that. And it helps. It helps me catch things that I didn't catch before, or I didn't get the inflection right, or something was missing, and it helps to hear it.
Yeah. Does your dog bark if doesn't like it?
She's completely silent.
Well, I just thought if there was a part in it that she didn't like.
She needs to step up her helpfulness here, because she's got to earn her keep a little bit.
Start making the bacon. Are you big on social media now? Do you have a website? Where do people find you?
Well, I think because I came from the media world, I was already on social media a lot, because it was trained into us that you have to tweet, you have to post, but I don't really have that much to post, like, what am I posting? My dog? Oh, look, there's a coyote outside. That's literally all I post now. It used to be, famous people hanging out, with Debbie Harry, and now it's like, oh, look, I have a coyote. But yes, no, I am on social. It's both social, Instagram and Twitter under Dramina. It's DRRRAMINA. And I have a website, which is AminaAkhtar.work, because AminaAkhtar.com was taken by another woman with my name.
Well, why didn't you take her out?
We've met online, and so it was. I feel because I've ruined her Google search results, it's fair.
Big meanie. Well, we'll have all that up on the website, on our website, so people can find you. But I'm sure they will anyway. So I wonder now, during this last COVID and all this strange stuff, the last few years and stuff, did that interrupt your writing, or did it make it harder to come up with ideas?
No, because I'm already a homebody and a hermit, so it didn't really change much, except that I didn't let my dad go out as much. You know what I mean? We just hid out at our house, and I already wasn't socializing out here because it's very MAGA. And
well, you're not MAGA.
And I was I'll go to Walmart and I'm like the only brown person around for miles, and it's like, this is a little uncomfortable. I saw a house the other day that actually had, the rainbow flag, and I was so excited because I was like, I can go be friends with these people. But I thought knocking on their door would be weird, so I didn't. Imagine just a strange girl being like, I saw your flag, I love you, let's hang out. So I'm definitely just sort of like a hermit out here, which works really well for writing.
I guess, but I would imagine that if you feel that way, like when you go to Walmart and you're out in the streets, that you're kind of the only in a group, there would be sort of a sense of isolation. And I wonder if that contributes to your books.
I'm sure it does. But I've also always weirdly been one of those people where when I was, working in fashion, I would have to, go to 4 or 5 parties a night, put an appearance and come home. And then on weekends, not leave my apartment.
Yeah.
It's like, you need to recharge. And it took me until hitting my 40s to understand just how much I need quiet alone time. So I enjoy the isolation. I'm one of those weird people who just loves it. And with the caveat that every now and again, I can go out to LA or I can go out to New York, see people for a week and then come back and hide. That sort of works for me.
Yeah, that doesn't sound weird at all. I think I'm built the exact same way. Like,
Yeah.
I like social and bursts, but man, like a stretch of time to be alone is just like, it's heaven.
Yeah. I am still recovering from last week, and like I got a hotel room just so I could have quiet time alone and like not have to talk to anybody. So it was like a few days of just hiding in the hotel, and I felt guilty because I'm in New York, I should be going and doing things. I was like, I'm not leaving this room, I'm good.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I find that stay by myself in a hotel room and cry and sad. No, no, especially when I'm writing and stuff, I'll go somewhere myself and do that because I think that it creates an atmosphere or a mood where you can get a lot accomplished and you're not bothered by people. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that.
No. Writing is inherently a very selfish act. We have to carve out time from our lives away from people to just sit and think and do things. And it's not a social activity for me. So, yeah.
Well, where do you see yourself going now?
I have no idea.
Well, but with this whole writing thing, now it seems to be taking off. So what do you think? How do you see this? Are you going to be doing, you got more books coming?
I have my next book I'm in edits for right now. And this one's actually set in New York, and it's about a woman who sleepwalks. And all these crazy things happen to her, and she's just this very I need to work on my elevator pitch, clearly, but she's very assimilated and doesn't believe in anything spiritual and what have you. And it turns out she might be haunted, and she doesn't believe it. And so you were kind of just going through trying to figure out what's actually happening. And then I have ideas for the next 2 books, but I feel like after I finish this edit, I'm doing nothing but reading for the rest of the year because I'm so behind on books because my deadlines have been a little intense. So I'm not going to write a word until next year.
Wow. And what kind of stuff do you kind of get into to read?
I read just about everything. Obviously there's a whole bunch of amazing crime writers I need to read, like John. I have piles of books, like the people we meet, and you're like, I want to support them, so I buy all the books, and then it's like, I need to find the time to read them. But I find that if I'm, in writing mode, I can't also jump into reading mode. They have to be a little bit separate for me. So I'm very behind. I just read Sandra Wong's book. It's one of the dark titles. What Happens in the Dark? I'm sorry, Sandra, I can't remember the name, but it was brilliant. It's this amazing book about, being Asian in Canada, and it's a whole thriller, but it involves family and all those issues. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. So I'll read just about anything as long as it's fiction. I cannot read nonfiction for some reason. It feels like I'm in school whenever I try. Sort of eyes glaze. So it has to be fiction. So yeah, I just kind of want to read literally every writer I've ever met. I want to read their books right now.
Yeah. Well, what do you get your inspiration from? As in, to get in the mood to write or do things? Is there music? Is it movies? Is it crystals? What?
I wish it were music. With migraines, I get very sound sensitive, so there's a lot of that I don't listen to. I've never listened to my my audiobooks. I can't do it. I need silence. No, I think my inspiration usually comes from me sitting around being like, oh my God, wouldn't it be funny if I did XYZ? And then that turns into a book. So it's usually something that I find, like there's an image in my head that I find hilarious and I want to turn it into something.
Wow. So you're not sitting around the house listening to Metallica?
No, but I will listen to them in the car.
Okay. Well,
that I'm fine with. I'm a former Texan from the 90s. Metallica and everything else was definitely on the playlist.
Oh, wow, quite a person here. My word. I don't know what to say. Well, people, you need to go out and pick up this book, help her out. She's walking around at night in her sleep and having weird dreams and talking to herself and back voices and, all that stuff, so, wow. Well, it's been an interesting conversation and I'm glad you came on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And this has been really fun.
Yeah, well, the book is called Kismet, and it's a thriller, and it's fiction. So it's not that nonfiction garbage. Okay.
No, not like outright.
Every time I try to read nonfiction, I swear to you, I end up reading the same line over and over. I don't know what it is about my brain that does that. It drives me crazy.
Oh, it's the same as when I write it.
You've been listening to the House of Mystery radio show. To find out more about our guests, hosts, or show, go to www.houseofmystery.com.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Yeah. Good night.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.
I'll be back.